Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Virgin Stars podcast. How my loyal listeners? Thank you for continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. It's an amazing episode because Terry Moore boards the mothership. You know him as the creator of Strangers in Paradise. Now he's the creator of Parker Girls. Come on board as we go traversing the stars.
Hello, Mr. Moore. Thank you so much for coming to the Virgin Stars podcast.
Happy to be here.
It's an honor to speak with you, sir.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, and thanks for helping me meet more of the world.
It's totally my pleasure. So I always start off with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love of comics and who your earliest influences?
Oh, probably the first comic that I fell in love with was Dennis the Menace. I mean, I'm really going back to square one. And what I liked about Dennis Menace was he had a neighborhood, so a sense of place. I learned that early. And then he would go on these trips, like Dennis Menace goes to Washington. So it made me realize you don't have to be peanuts and stay in your yard. You could do comics and travel and have adventure just like a movie. So that really kind of caught my attention, really, like when I was 6, 7, 15.
So when you're writing your comic books, are you always, is it that part of the excitement going to visit new places you've never been before, or are these places you've been to, and the excuse to go there is that it's going to be in your comic book?
It's funny. A lot of my stories start because I went somewhere and saw something that inspired the story. But when I'm in the middle of making a story, they go to all kinds of places I've never been. My characters are much more well-traveled than I
am. So when you're going to a place you've never been before, are you researching it? Is it like a best guess of what it kind of looks like? Or, because I mean, you're the artist as well, so it must, I assume you're deep diving into it.
Yeah, and I have made specific trips for research so that I could, like at the end of my first big long series, Strangers in Paradise, the ending, the last, probably the last 10 issues occur in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so Robin and I went, my wife, we went there for a week and hung out at all the places, and I took pictures. And then when it was time to draw it, I was really drawing the Cowgirl Cafe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the square and the houses and all that. So it made things a lot more fun for me. And if anybody's actually been to those places and then they see it in the comic, that's cool.
So how often do you, or like, you know what? Let's put in a story in Hawaii so I can take a nice trip.
That has happened. We did that once. Yeah. Kachu has Kachu is the main character in Strangers in Paradise, and she has a beach house in Hawaii. And it comes from me walking the beaches a few times over there and thinking about it, like, okay, this is a good hiding spot. George Harrison of the Beatles bought a beach house in Hawaii because you just feel like you're on the other side of the world and nobody can find you. It's very remote feeling for a mainlander to go over there. You feel like, man, I don't even know what time the NFL game is on over here.
I've only seen pictures, but I always wanted to go. But I imagine it's a great tax write-off. So let me put in some of my stories and take a trip.
Yeah. We use the business card for all that, and I don't know what all that really means. I don't know how to do taxes, but whatever.
So the life of a comic book artist is more glamorous than you would think.
Yes, before this, my job was as a video editor, and that got me no travel. I sat in a dark room surrounded by screens for 10 years, and I went nowhere. I never thought that being a comic book artist would allow me to travel around America and go to these conventions. And when you have a regular day job like, editor, and you have to go to the video convention, the vibe is kind of like very professional and people doing pitches. So that's what I thought conventions all were. And then I went to my first comic book convention. I think it was, it was one here in Houston. Then I went straight to San Diego, like in 1994. And it was the happiest place on earth. It's like I went to Disneyland because I saw the difference immediately. Everybody's there because they want to be. And the vibe is incredible, and it was so, I'm really happy that I've been able to do that for the last, umpteen years.
I will say one of my pleasures is going to comic book conventions. I try to go to at least a couple every year. Luckily, now that I have a podcast, I can go in sometimes as press, which is really cool because it saves me the ticket. But I've got to be I've been able to do the sit at the table because I do some indie comic books myself, so I get to do. And that, I mean, it's such a great atmosphere and it's so much fun. And I have like if you ever go to my house, the walls are wallpapered and autographed. So I have autographed comic books on my walls, and they're all, it's like literally every part of my wall is just an autograph of something.
Wow, that's incredible. Isn't it amazing that you can go actually talk to the artist? So there may be somebody, whether they're new or they're somebody I grew up admiring, and you go to enough conventions, you'll eventually see them standing behind a table and you can walk up and shake their hand and say, thank you, or what are you doing next? And they actually talk back to you. They're approachable. They're, try to do that with a really super famous actor and you're not going to get near them, but you can go up and talk to Frank Cho, or, I'm sure there's another famous person out there somewhere, but yeah. Bill Sienkiewicz, Jim Lee.
I've had so many good experiences where I've been able to go up to the person and sit and and just like chat with them for a little while. And especially if you go on a Sunday, apparently Sunday's the key. Go on a Sunday because most people went on Friday and Saturday. Less people, you go to the table and they'll talk with you. And I must admit, it makes reading the next comic book they write a little cooler because you met them. It makes it a more real, substantial.
Yeah, and one of the things I found that a lot of these comic book artists, they're a lot stronger personalities than you might have thought. Not everybody is hiding in the attic and weird. A lot of these people have interesting lives, and it's fun to talk to them.
Which is the surprise. We always would assume the comic people are basement dwellers, but they do seem cool. And recommend to anyone going to the convention, stop by Artist Alley as well. Those people are really cool too, and they have a lot of good stories. So do stop by, say hi.
Yeah. There's the talent in Artist Alley is just off the chart. That's where you go to find somebody, maybe before their first big movie or something. Even movie people, cartoonists with a movie or a TV show may still be in Artist Alley. You just, but that's also the place where you can go meet somebody really fun, like Katie Cook, and she has these little $5 art cards that you can buy, and they're just the cutest thing you've ever seen, and they're all a little touch of watercolor. So not everything is, like a sideshow $3,000 statue. The range is full,
And I always make a rule, and I think everyone should do the rule. When you go to a comic book convention, buy something from at least one artist in Artist Alley. Just pick one of them, buy something. That's the people who need the most support. So recommendation, good art, just find one person. You don't have to most of us can't afford to, support all the Artist Alley, but just find one guy, or girl, whatever. Go spend your $4 on their comic book. Trust me, it probably means more to them than spending $100 on a superstar.
It makes a difference, and young artists need to. One of the reasons they come to the show is maybe it's shy and hard for them because they're shy, but they really are not shy about their art, and they will talk to you about their art all day long. And that's a great way to start a conversation, meet somebody cool.
And for those who are out there for writers, I actually met at least one of the artists who worked on one of my books prior, Frankie Washington. He was the one I met at the convention. We just started talking. I was like, that art looks good. So like I said, network, it works. It's perfect. Yes. So we'll move on to your stuff. we're promoting that. So you, what inspired the creation of Parker Girls, and which aspect of the story grabbed your attention first?
The Parker Girls comes from Strangers in Paradise. And most everything I've done has come rooted in Strangers in Paradise somehow, because it's the first series I did, and I did it for 13 years. So there's a ton of it. And when you do one series for 13 years, you throw the kitchen sink at it. So every idea I could come up with. So one of the things was this network of spies, and not James Bond, but more like, how they're always, once a year, you'll find out on CNN or somewhere that it turns out that one of the guards in the governor's mansion was a Russian spy, that kind of thing, intrigue. So the Parker Girls are kind of an organization like that, but they kick ass. So it's not a lot of people talking on a couch. It's because I still need to be entertained.
Right, right.
And so their Parker Girls is, it's kind of a mature book, 15 and up. Um, Not so much for sex as it is for violence.
Mm.
They really kick it. And that's fun for me to think of ways to, because what I do as a writer is I think about things like I am so tired of, say, predators. I'm sick of them. I hate them. So in my comic stories, I get to go find a predator and do what you wish you could do to a predator.
Right, right,
So it's good therapy work too.
right. So, what makes for a great Parker girl? Like, what aspects do they have to possess?
Uh, all the Parker girls are very smart, highly educated, very smart, and very brave. They are the ones who run to the trouble, not away from it.
Mm.
So like a good soldier. But they have the complete wide range of personality types and looks and specialties. There's a Parker girl who specializes in finance. So, say you are a tech billionaire and you have money coming through offshore accounts, and we find out about it, the Parker girls find out about it. They know how to do the forensics to find out if that really is just the stuff you're siphoning off the top,
Mm.
or is that where you're channeling through your money from China to put stuff into your chips. They can find that out. However, if you are a violent son of a gang boss and you're a psychopath, we have a Parker girl that can stand toe to toe with you. And all those WWE wrestlers that you hire as bodyguards, she can take them down.
So the interesting thing about the Parker girls is that their connection, like their official connection to like the government and whatnot, it seems kind of nebulous. They're kind of like, seems like they have some connections with the government. They have some authority. At the same time, they're off books. No one's supposed to know that they exist.
Yeah, you deny, deny, deny. Try to prove that they exist. Um, they are not government affiliated. They actually started in Strangers in Paradise. They were the handpicked people that worked for a woman named Parker, Darcy Parker. She was one of the big six. When I was growing up, there was this wonderful conspiracy theory that there were six powerful people running America. And it was all, industrial or crime, all that. Anyway, Darcy Parker was one of them. And she didn't last through the whole series. That's a spoiler, but people like that don't last. But her group did. And so they continue to this day. And this is just a side story, really a spin-off story about what these people are doing now, that it's not about, crime boss and however you made money in the 80s and the 90s. Now it's about, we live in today. We have problems today with billionaire techs and international relationships. Some of it can be negotiated, and some of it you just need to go over there and burn their house down.
So the people who become Parker, where are they found? Are they from other divisions in the government? Are they people who are girls who have been found or discovered by the officials? How are they once again grouped into the Parker Girl organization?
The group is led by one person, Tamby Baker, and she is the daughter of a Chicago mob boss who operated back in the 50s and 60s. Very powerful guy. Now Tamby is big. She's like 6'3", bodybuilder. She's a very intimidating person. She used to be the bodyguard, number one bodyguard, and kind of a hit person for Darcy Parker. After Darcy died, Tamby was still the boss of all these Parker girls, and they have just maintained as an entity to continue. And Tamby is actually pretty darn patriotic. So she is involved in keeping tabs on what Washington does. And if we have things like some asshole is messing up nuclear arms negotiations, and there's you don't want any of it to end up on TV. You call Tamby, and she fixes it in the middle of the night. So that's the kind of thing that she does. So Tamby is why the Parker Girls exist, and she recruits people that are the best at what they do. Like there is in the Parker Girls series that we're doing right now, there's an investigator named Cherry Hammer, and she's an Elvis fan and a night owl, but she is the world's #1 detective, best detective at, like, if you tell a story about how your actress wife got drunk and fell overboard off the coast of Malibu and drowned, and gosh, we didn't hear a thing, we don't know anything about it. Cherry will come investigate and find out exactly what happened on your boat that night. And Cherry's right-hand man is a girl called Becky, and Becky comes from the Marines, where she was a sniper. And so we call her Becky the Gun Girl. And in Strangers in Paradise, Becky took a 1,500-yard shot to assassinate somebody. And she did it between the buildings in Houston with all the crosswinds. So I have characters like that because I have watched so many of those, type of videos. Here's a, a mile long sniper shot or something. I thought it was so cool. So of course we have a Parker Girl that can do that too.
And, uh,
It's so fun to come up with these characters. I mean, my God.
and I think one of the cool things about Becky is she does the Star Trek references, and I think it was issue 4. I can't quite recall. Is she kind of a geek, or is it just something that she's so aware of pop culture like that?
She's just aware, and I think that both she and Cherry have a geeky side to them. Cherry is still kind of an Elvis nut. I mean, that's what's on her playlist. But Becky is. I have not met anybody who doesn't know how Star Wars operates or Star Trek operates. Even when I talk to jazz musicians, I say I'm in comics, and they start talking about Star Wars or Star Trek. That's where they jump in,
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the entry IP for the rest of the world. If you're not actually a hardcore comics geek, we can get you through those properties.
And and I think they complement each other very well, and they're a great team up. So are they partnered by happenstance, or is there a deeper reason why these two were placed together by Tamby?
They work well together because a lot of what Cherry finds has to be dealt with immediately. So there's a scene in one of the other books, I think it's 5 Years or Strangers in Paradise 25, where Tamby, Cherry, and Becky are all doing an operation together in a war zone in the Middle East, and they're under fire and all that. So I think they just kind of there's a kind of a mercenary aspect to it, where a lot of times that in a traditional detective story, if the detective finds the clues and finally figures out who did it, then they call the authorities. In this case, the authority is a phone call away, and it's Tamby. What do you want to do? And if there have been times where Tamby says, "Take the shot," and that's it. That person's story's over.
Now there's a great scene where Cherry and Becky are dealing with a dog, and Cherry's like, "Don't shoot the dog," and then later on, she's remembering a story of her with the dog. She sheds a tear. Now, is that can be further explained? Why was that moment significant for her?
That was significant because it's one of the first times we've ever looked into Cherry as a person, as opposed to this, or the role that she plays in the operation. But we're spending more time with these two in this story, so we're getting to know them more as people. When they appeared before, it stayed on point to what was happening. Now you're riding in the car with them, and you can see Cherry relax, and her mind wanders back to, like, at first they were leaving the house of somebody wealthy and walking across the yard at 2 a.m. and a Doberman comes at them, and Becky's first instinct is to pull out her 9mm, and she's going to deal with it. But Cherry says, "No, no, 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 no. We do not hurt dogs." And then a minute later in the car, her mind goes back to the dog that she loved dearly growing up. And you can see that that's really deep seated. And I put moments like that in there so that you can relate to the person.
Mm.
I think that touches a button in all of us, and suddenly we see her as like somebody we would talk to and somebody we would be happy to have lunch with, as opposed to that intimidating official person that walked through the door.
Mm. Now, as a reader, there's a lot you can read into something like that. What is it? What was significant about her relationship with the dog? And what does that suggest maybe about the kind of childhood she had that brought her to where she was? And is that can be explored further in other issues?
It's a good question, and what I think might stand out to somebody that has read this story is that it was a dog, not a person.
Mm.
She's not sentimental over some old love, and it's the first time we've ever seen her sentimental over any anything.
Mm.
And the first time you get a chance to see that, it's a dog.
Mm.
So that says a lot about her, because every time we've seen her, she's either with Becky or alone. She's a loner.
Mm.
Um, and I just wanted to do that. If it was the old days, it might have been another person, you
Mm.
know, all those romantic songs about the person you miss, the first one you miss,
Yeah.
those days just don't seem to work anymore. I never hear anybody talk like that anymore. What I do see is people who um, are really, really attached to their animals. It's like every dog owner, every dog now is a support animal.
Right. It's like the John Wick effect.
Yes, yeah, because you killed my dog.
Right.
And that's kind of what's happening in this story. The whole of Parker Girls is centered around the death of that actress on that yacht.
Mm.
I was not kidding about that. So and everybody, these Parker Girls have this John Wick mission. You killed one of us.
Yeah.
We're never going to let this drop. There is nowhere you can hide.
Mm.
We will find out the truth and we will come for you.
Now, Becky seems to take the death of Piper more personally than Cherry. So does that demonstrate a deeper connection between Piper and Becky? Or is it just the fact that you attacked one of us, you attacked us all, and it's just a personal affront to the organization?
I think Becky is more balanced, and I think Cherry is maybe on the spectrum, a little bit more detached from those kind of connections. Not once in my career have you ever seen Becky be attached to somebody, or have a connection with somebody.
Mm.
Um, she calls Tamby boss, and she talks to Becky, and maybe that's why she only works with Becky. Maybe Becky is the only one that she can handle being around. And I have artists who are brilliant, and they really don't like to leave home. And they only talk to a few people, and I feel so lucky to be able to talk to them. And once you're in the circle, you have this wonderful person. But if you're not in that circle, you can't get the time of day.
Mm.
And I think Cherry's kind of like that.
I mean, I think that's absolutely fascinating. And is the connection with the other Parker girls deeper than what would be with a normal individual? Like, does she have that connection with the others?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's like a military connection. Like if you and I both had if we were both in, say, the Marine Corps, and we both went to the same similar places, and we find out we meet each other later, there's a connection there. It's like a brotherhood, and in the case of the Parker Girls, it's a sisterhood. There aren't that many Parker Girls. And that's something I've always wondered about James Bond. As far as we know, there's only 7.
Mm.
And and less than that now. But I remember in the books they did mention a couple of other guys with 00 numbers. But I don't know how many Parker Girls there are exactly. Only as many as I need for my story. Very small group.
Now, because the Parker Girls are kind of off books, are their identity something that is public? I mean, do they have lives outside the organization?
Darn, that's an IRS question, man. I think it would be really hard. I guarantee you won't find any of them on the web if you were to start, like typing in phone numbers and looking for addresses, or anything like that. So they are off the grid in that sense. Are they registered with the U.S. government as citizens? I'm sure they are. Do they have permits to do this stuff? No. But it would be like, where this really all started from? It came from a Russian spy named Christine Keeler.
Okay.
In 1964, there was a scandal when it was discovered that one of the House of Lords members was having an affair. And the woman he was having an affair with and sharing all of his secrets and talking about his day turned out to be a Russian spy who was then passing it all on to the Kremlin. And it all blew up in everybody's face. And her name came out, Christine Keeler. And turns out she wasn't the only one. And she became famous, and she was in the newspapers, and she went on to have a public life. She didn't get in trouble for it. I guess I don't even know if she ever went home. But anyway, that scandal came out at the time when James Bond was doing everything with Beretta, and Christine was doing it in the bedroom. So who's more effective? And
Right.
that's where later on, when I need some sort of mob action going on, I'm thinking, that bedroom tactic was a really good thing. And it would have worked really well in the 80s when everybody was sleeping with everybody. And so that's kind of how that got started. And today, I think it's different, of course. People don't have affairs that easily anymore. But, these Parker girls still have their ability to get into lives, and you could be married to one and not know it. Remember that movie with Gina Davis where she thought she lost her memory?
Is that The Long Kiss Goodnight?
Yes.
Yes.
She lost her memory, and then turns out she was an assassin. And
right.
And now she thinks she's married with a kid, and then she wakes up from it.
Yeah.
I like stories like that. I like it.
That was a good movie. And that also kind of reminds me a little bit of the idea of True Lies. The Schwarzenegger is like a family man, but on the side he's actually like the super killer agent at the same time.
And after that Gina Davis one, there's another movie I really like, The History of Violence.
Okay, I know of it. I haven't seen it.
That's a hitman. I think his criminal brother is anyway. He comes from a crime family, and he wanted out. He was a hitman. He was fantastic. He wanted out, and the story starts, and he is running a small cafe in a small town, and two goons come in for coffee, and they recognize him. Oh boy. And the whole movie starts from there. I love that movie.
I'll have to check it out. I'll definitely check it out at some point.
History of Violence.
I mean, that's Viggo Mortensen, which is from Lord of the Rings. Everyone, yeah, he's a great actor. He's actually a fantastic actor.
And he doesn't look like a hitman, but his face is like his acting ability is like nothing scares him. You can tell the difference between a regular citizen with a 45 in his face and a professional person with a gun in their face, and they just like they know what they're going to do before they know what they're going to do with you before you know what you're going to do. It shows in their face. I notice things like that in these movies because I have to draw it. I don't want to draw a scene with a professional hitman and they're all acting like Looney Tunes.
Right.
So I notice stuff like that, and I try to remember it when I see it.
So when you're something like in the Parker Girls, you have the murder of Piper, and you have an attack on Chuvonsky. Am I saying that right? Chuvonsky?
Yeah, Katina Chuvonsky.
Chuvonsky. That's suggesting the Parker. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Katina Chuvonsky, and you do a contraction with that name, and it's Kachu.
Kachu. That's cool. So are the Parker Girls themselves then being attacked, or these just so happens that what's going on with Piper and what's going on with at the end are separate events?
Well, Piper was just not an action hero or anything. Piper actually was an actress, and that was dating a billionaire, and so Tamby got her to say, do us a favor, will you? She and Tammy were friends. Do us a favor, while you're with this guy, let us know about any big moves he's doing, this billionaire tech guy. And he's based off of a guy who owns a popular social media site. And so she did. So she's basically a Parker girl. But so the death of her is not going to go unpunished. And um, that's kind of the motivation behind investigating Piper. The thing about Kachu is she was with the Parker girls a long time ago as well, and she has quite a reputation for different reasons. I mean, she has different skills, but yeah, she's involved because this tech billionaire used to be a geeky kid with new money in LA and was one of her clients when she was an LA call girl. So, and I'll tell you another thing I've shared before though, but uh, the LA call girl stuff that the Parker girls used to do back in the day
Yeah.
was an idea that I got off an Elton John song. What would I do without albums and news?
I know. Which song?
All the Young Girls Love Alice.
Okay.
So on Yellow Brick Road, on the second LP, I guess, is a song called All the Young Girls Love Alice. And it's about this girl that all the ladies in town are using for pleasure. And all the young girls love Alice, but Alice is a mess. And this song, I heard it when I was a teenager. Years later, Kachu is a runaway teen. And I'm thinking, she goes to LA and you either find a job, you know, paying minimum wage, or you find something else to do. And she fell in with the wrong crowd, and it changed her life.
That's cool. I like how there's all like the behind the scenes stories of it all. That's actually fantastic.
A lot of it's most all this is in the books and all that. So you have to do like a deep dive, but one thing leads, it'll keep taking you back and back and back.
All right, you're gonna write a book one day where you go through like the behind the scenes of the making of
The whole, yeah, that would be cool. If man, I would love to have time enough to do stuff like that. I would have to get off. I have been on a diamond deadline since 1993. So every 4 to 6 weeks, I have a book due, and I've only had like a few months break in that whole time. So the deadline keeps me. That's why I have so many books, but it's also why I don't do anything else. So making a making of book would be that would be hard. I'd have to retire first.
So how soon will the Mark storyline weave into everything else that's happening?
The which story? The Mark?
Mark, because I mean he was introduced at the beginning. I don't want to give any spoilers to what happens with him, but obviously there's something going on there as well, and I assume there's a tie-in coming at some point.
Yeah. Mark was the small crime that opened the window to see a big crime. So it's an iceberg situation. At first, you think the problem is Mark is one of the financial people for the tech billionaires company, and he's kind of he thinks he's going to run away with somebody, and so he embezzles money to give them a nest egg to do that, and he embezzles a little money from an offshore account that nobody else is supposed to know about. It's in the company, and it's that situation I was describing earlier. And so the tech billionaire hires the Parker girls to go find this guy when he runs away, and they do. And they get the money back. But when they get the money back, they also take Mark's laptop and they look through it, and they see the offshore account, and they start investigating the offshore account, and they find out that it's not just skim money. It's not just like, Enron had offshore accounts and they were just doing all kinds of illegal accounting over there on their offshore accounts. So everybody suspects that. But if you see that some of the money is coming from a hostile nation, then and this company is making the chips that go in our satellites. You need to know more. And that's kind of what starts the big investigation. It's one thing to steal money. It's another thing to put entire nations at serious risk. And so the whole thing escalates throughout the investigation.
That's cool.
And you find a part where you're thinking, gloves off. we do, and that's really what I want. I really want that John Wick fight scene where it's gloves off. Just give me a reason, and we'll tear this city apart.
So how long is Parker Girls slated to last, and what can the listeners expect coming up with Parker Girls?
Paper Girls was a good series.
Yeah,
too.
sorry, I knew I was gonna get the words mixed up at some point during the interview, and I finally did. I was very proud of myself for screwing that up.
next one is Parker Birds. Where are Parker Birds? What was the question? I forgot. Where's it going?
So what can the readers look forward to, and how many issues is it ongoing? Is it going to be there's a certain issue that it definitely reaches?
It's only 10 issues long, and that's how I've been making series for the last few years. It's 10 issues. It's as long as I can get a series to last, because people will buy the first one, check it out, and if they like it, they think, okay, now I'm going to wait for the trade. So there's no sales for the single issues.
Right.
So 10 issues just to get the story made. And that should take me into it should be finished this summer. Every 6 weeks.
Well, yeah. So what you can do. It's going to be Parker Girls Part 2 after this one's over. You're going to keep going with it, or are you going to move into something different?
No, I have the next 2 projects are planned, and they're not this at all. And of course I can't tell you what they are, but just trust me, it will change everything we know as we know it. This changes everything, it'll be world changing and change humanity, the course of humanity.
Oh my God.
Oh, no.
As long as your goals are easily achievable, it's all I'm saying. At least you have easily achievable goals.
Who knew that the answer to everything came from a comic book? Yeah.
So, comic book readers. Comic readers always knew.
We knew.
So you also have an active Kickstarter called After Dark.
Yeah.
So can you tell listeners a little bit about it?
Yeah. All of my books have female protagonists. That's just something I do. I like women, and I think that their story needs to be heard. And I think that, I don't know, I just feel strongly about doing that, and doing what I can to kick the male gaze between the eyes. But I also, because I have these women, and because they're so beautiful in my eyes, I have a lot of sketches and drawings and all that. So Kachu and Cherry and Becky and Tambi and Francine and a lot of characters. So I have spent my whole career doing these drawings and poses and pinups and sketches for shows and all that. Well, After Dark is a collection of the art of the women in my books. And After Dark was a title my wife came up with. It's like, here's what the stories is what they do during the day, and then what they do at night is what we sketch. And so it's very intriguing. Again, not for your kids. It's 15 plus, but yeah, so it's 120 pages, and we have never tried a Kickstarter before. So our friends were around me, our publishing friends were doing them, and they said, "Oh, it's easy. We'll help you." And they did, and we launched it, and we have 9 days left, and we did achieve our goal, and we're about $2,000 less than that. We're like $300 away from achieving our last stretch goal.
Oh, wow.
So we're very excited.
That's amazing. And for someone who I actually have a Kickstarter about to be launched soon, I look at yours with huge envy. It's doing so well. It's doing so amazingly well.
Well, we've had a lot of help. The guy who actually helped build the page for us and walk us through it every week is Pat Shan, Destiny New York. He's a writer that makes comics and all that. And he's done a bunch of Kickstarters. So we had his help. We had the advice of, friends like Jimmy Palmiotti and Brian Polito and Billy Tucci and Jeff and Vijaya. It's a lot of help to get it going. It takes a village. But I think it's been a good learning experience, and I think we'll be able to do it again. And I wanted to do the first one with an art book because it's ready to go. I have no problem making an art book. But the next time I come back, I want to do a new story. And so that is answering your question about what's next. One of them will be a story that's in Kickstarter.
So-
And I'll do like an 80-page story. I'll get about
Yeah.
halfway through it and then launch the Kickstarter and say, here's pages from it already, and let's get this thing going, you know?
That's awesome. So what tips can you give the rest of us who are trying to launch a Kickstarter with your level of success? Like how to make this work?
Well, I suggest starting by contacting Pat Shand. SHAND. Yeah, and I think he just finished a Kickstarter, but you can look him up on Kickstarter, see what he's been doing, and the way he works his stretch goals and his add-ons, all those little details that make it fun, and the important things like updates. How often do you need to update? And then there's a whole other world that most people don't see, which is like when the Kickstarter is over, you have a lot of responsibility to turn in information to Kickstarter, the organization. They need to know, they follow everything, they track it, so that there's no way you can take any money and run. You have to, you know, they follow you. So Pat has been talking us through all that, and he'll talk us through the after part as well. But yeah, you know, somebody like Pat, and if Pat's it can't handle it, then or he's too busy or overloaded, then I'm sure he has recommendations. And of course, you know, there must be a million YouTube videos. So I would, if I didn't have Pat, I would have been watching YouTube videos.
Well, Mr. Moore, it's been an absolute honor to talk with you, sir. So after dark, you said 9 days left from, well, depends on when this airs. So what's the exact date of it airing? Ending
March 3. It ends March 3. Yeah. All right. So if you go in there now and get something, order a book, you're going to get every one of our stretch goals, which is cool. All these other people got the stretch goals for you. You're welcome.
So it'll be in our show notes. So listeners, check the show notes for the YouTube. You'll find the link to the Kickstarter. Mr. Moore, it's been an absolute.
Thank you, Jeff.